Body modification can really be anything from a pierced ear, a tattoo, a breast implant, to splitting your tongue in an attempt to look more serpent-like. Though the majority of the population nowadays has some form of body modification, they are most often socially acceptable, like ear and nose piercings, or a few covered tattoos. Even the days of more than a few facial piercings or visible tattoos being a stigma are for the most part over with. Who doesn't know anyone without a tattoo, even a visible one? That said, there are still forms of more extreme body modification, whether via more traditional means like piercing and tattoos, or through implants, surgeries, and a mix of everything above. Some see the people on this list as trailblazers for self-expression, while others view them as insecure and mentally ill. There's no judgment passed here at all. Just a glimpse at a select few of the most heavily modified bodies on the planet. Labret piercings are a very common form of body art, maybe not quite as much today as in years past, but nevertheless, if you head out into a crowded bar, club or concert, you'll catch more than a few people sporting them. What isn't quite so common is the labret spacer. Ear spacers are all the rage. But stretching out your labret enough to actually fit a giant spacer through the piercing is pretty extreme, while some with labret spacers merely push the envelope a little. Others stretch the skin beneath the lip so wide and place a hollow spacer into the hole, fully exposing their teeth and their gums. A little extreme, and a little confusing as to how, or even if, that skin ever returns to normal. We've all heard of saline injections, right? After all, most breast implants, at least in part, utilize saline, but to inject saline into your forehead, that is an entirely different ballgame. Some use this form of body modification to put horn-shaped injections into their skull, while others, particularly in Japan as of late, have taken to using the saline injection to create a bagel-shaped lump in their forehead. The procedure takes about 2 hours, and apparently the saline dissipates back into the skin after a day. But the trend has been a hot one the past few years. There is extreme, and then there is implanting circular tentacle-shaped silicone implants into your body to look like a sea creature. The tentacle implant hasn't necessarily caught on in a massive way, but the idea and execution is just so strange that it's well worth mentioning. Part new wave science fiction, ever read China Miéville, and part old school Lovecraftian Cthulhu mythos. If you decided to take a love of weird fiction, or the sea, to a whole new level, rest assured, your tentacle implants certainly won't go unnoticed, and you'll probably be the only one around with them. Tentacles. There really is just no making up what some people will implant into their bodies. For performance artist Stelarc, born Stelios Arcadius, silicone tentacles just didn't quite cut it. Instead, he searched for a decade to find a surgeon willing to implant an ear into his forearm, a legitimate human ear, grown in a lab and finally implanted into the 61-year-old back in 2007. Stelarc has also held on to hope that he'll one day have a microphone implanted into the ear in his forearm, which he plans on connecting to a Bluetooth device in order for his audiences to hear what his third ear is hearing. Fascinating, but utterly creepy as well. Ever seen the film Hellraiser starring the nasty old Cenobite Pinhead? Well, some into the body modification scene have taken a page from his playbook and gone the body mod route of implanting spikes into their head, though none have gone to such extremes as Pinhead. They also don't live in Clive Barker's warped mind, though maybe they should. The transdermal implants are, what else, implanted into the head to a degree, while the rest of the implant A steel spike protrudes from the top of the head, part heavy metal, part Mad Max, and part terrifying. The trend of transdermal steel spike implants is actually not as uncommon as you might think. Dennis Avner truly does look like a tiger. The amount of facial modification the cat man has undergone alone has helped him achieve his goal of looking like the giant cat. Avner has endured stripes tattooed all across his face, subdermal implants in his cheeks to change the actual shape of his face, transdermal implants to facilitate whiskers, and extensive filing of his teeth to give the appearance of fangs, all to help him reach his goal. He had further silicone injections in his face, and split his upper lip as well in order to widen it. Also known as stalking cat due to his Native American heritage, Avner was active in the body modification community throughout his life, sadly. It was reported that Dennis Avner took his own life at age 54 in November of 2012.
73-year-old Tom Leppard was once the most tattooed man on Earth, thanks to the unmistakable spots tattooed all over his body. The former soldier living off the coast of Scotland dropped out of society years ago to live as the Leopard Man, leaving his tiny shelter, with a roof made of plastic, a few times a month only to collect food and supplies and his military pension. Eventually, the hermit lifestyle in the wild caught up with Tom, and in 2008, he left his home and reacquainted himself with electricity and a bed by moving into a retirement home.
When you have over 9,000 piercings, over 500 of them involving your genitalia, you would hope that you hold the distinction in the Guinness Book of World Records as most pierced person on Earth. Edinburgh, Scotland resident, and Brazil native Elaine Davidson definitely owns that record. There is no place on her body that is not covered with holes, and along with her flamboyant hairstyle, Davidson, and her piercings, all 9,000 some odd of them, are a shock to the public wherever she goes. Born with a condition that continuously made her skin blister and subsequently scar, Julia Hughes decided, once and for all, that she wanted to cover the scars, and she did so with tattoos. Known to some as the Illustrated Lady, Julia is the most tattooed woman on the planet, while her skin condition, known as porphyria, didn't develop until she was in her 30s. News wasted little time getting to work on her body modification, as today, at age 55, she has covered roughly 90% of her body in ink, including her face, sadly. The tattoos didn't make an impact on her skin condition. She still blisters as always, but now, the damage is covered by her tattoos. One of the coolest things you may see at a party, or club, is when someone shows you their surgically split tongue. It's shocking, but also pretty badass. In an "I probably wouldn't go that far" kind of way, Eric Sprague, aka the Lizard Man, took the idea of a snake tongue so much further. One of the first documented people to actually have their tongue split, I can most likely thank Sprague for the split tongue that crossed my path. Not only does Sprague have his tongue split, he is also heavily tattooed in a lizard pattern, and has also filed down his teeth into fangs, and placed Teflon into his forehead to achieve a look of horns.